Hello, everyone, and whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, thanks for joining us today. This Saturday night, in only 2 days, AEW will broadcast the third edition of the Full Gear pay-per-view from the Target Center in Minneapolis. As you may recall, Full Gear a year ago was held in front of a limited, socially distanced crowd at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, and it rocked nonetheless. So this Saturday, now in front of a full house at the Target Center, you can expect more of the same. In fact, Full Gear will mark one of the biggest shows of 2021 with 3 AEW championship belts on the line. Darby Allin also takes on MJF, CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston, Bryan Danielson versus Miro, a Minneapolis street fight, and other can't-miss matches. So with that, it is now my honor to introduce AEW CEO, GM, and Head of Creative, Tony Khan, who is here for the next 45 minutes or so to answer your questions. I'll turn it over to Tony now for some opening thoughts, and then we'll open the lines for your questions. Tony?
Hey everyone. I really look forward to your questions, and I don't want to take up too much of the time so everyone can get them in. I'm very much looking forward to the pay-per-view this weekend, and thank you all for participating in this call and helping us spread the word about AEW and Full Gear.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Tony. So here we go. We're going to start with Chris Mueller from Bleacher Report, and then after Chris, on the on-deck circle will be John Alba from Ad Free Shows. So, Chris, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Hey, Tony. So with Full Gear coming up, we've got a big card here with 10 matches, and previous pay-per-views have been similar length. I was just wondering if that is sort of like the ideal length that you've kind of picked for AEW pay-per-views, or do you ever see that being shortened or expanded for different events in the future?
Well, it's a great question, Chris. For the big four AEW pay-per-views, I think we found a great length that works very well for us. We've had really, really great reviews for the pay-per-views we've done, and particularly the All Out pay-per-view, our most recent show, is the best feedback we've ever had on anything we've ever done, any show, and it's the most revenue we've ever brought in from a pay-per-view, and I think it was also the best the fans or the critics have ever received any of the shows. So I really like the format and length of the shows, the 4-hour main card plus the buy-in with a pre-show match or two. So yeah, I think it's a good length of card, and we really found something that works for us very well.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Chris. Okay, as promised, John Alba from Ad Free Sports is next. And after that, I'm going to read a write-in question from Jonathan Hood of ESPN Chicago. So, John?
Jim, thank you. And Tony, thank you for your time, as always. I'd like to ask about Hangman Page, someone who we saw at the introductory press conference for AEW back in the beginning of 2019. He was positioned to be a big star out of that gate, and yet here we are now, more than 2 years later, seemingly ready for what could be a crowning moment. What would you like to say about his journey over the course of that time and how he's grown as a performer, and why is now the right time for him to face Kenny Omega on this stage?
Well, it's a great question, John. We talked about homemade stars before in AEW, and this is the epitome of the homemade star. Hangman Page was a young wrestler when he joined AEW who a lot of the hardcore wrestling fans knew, but he hadn't had a lot of experience wrestling on national television, and he's really blossomed under the eyes of the fans and the people who've been watching AEW from the beginning. And we've been really blessed to have a great audience that stuck with us from when we first launched Dynamite in 2019. And there's all these fans that have seen Hangman grow. He actually got the very first shot at the AEW title. He and Chris Jericho, Hangman and Chris Jericho, wrestled in the first ever All Out main event. They had a great match. And then we've seen Hangman grow so much as a wrestler from when he debuted. Obviously, we, had big plans for him. I thought really highly of him since he first came in and have always believed he's a top wrestler. Now here he is again, getting another opportunity at the championship, and it's a very different company and it's a very different situation. There's so much history between Kenny and Hangman. They had a great partnership. It was something I felt really strongly about from the beginning of AEW, that I really believed in Kenny and Hangman together as a team and what we could build from it. And here we are, and we're still it's still, bearing the fruits of our labor. So I really have always believed in Hangman Page, and I've also really believed in Kenny Omega, and that there's something special between the two of them at first as a tag team. On our third ever Dynamite in Philadelphia, we did a match. It was Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus John Moxley and Pac, and that was the first time Kenny Omega and Hangman Page had ever teamed. And I liked it a lot. The match did a really good number, and they kept teaming. And there was so much story. I mean, they had so much chemistry, and then they had this amazing match against the Young Bucks at Revolution, and we just saw they had an amazing chemistry as a tag team. Yet there was something between them where you could immediately tell that someday it was going to be an amazing rivalry between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. And then they had an amazing match at Full Gear last year, and as Jim said in the introduction to the call, Full Gear last year was held at Daly's Place in front of a physically distanced, limited crowd. But at the time, there was nothing like it in North American pro wrestling. There were about 1,300 fans at Daly's Place at about 25% capacity, outdoors, socially distanced. So we did those shows, as you've all heard me say many times. It was like a drive-in movie where each group of fans had their own pod, and they had their own seating section outdoors. And we found a way to bring outdoor wrestling and live wrestling back. And it was the only place on TV worldwide, really, where the fans could see that kind of wrestling with the fans cheering and going crazy. And what a match it was at Full Gear. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page last year in the finals of the Eliminator tournament to get a shot at the world title. And then from there, Kenny Omega won the world title, and he's closing in on 1 year as the world champion. He is our longest reigning champion, and the company has grown and evolved so much with Kenny as the champion, and he's had so many classic matches already in this run, and I'm very excited for their match. And I think for Hangman Page, it's hard to talk about the story of Hangman Page in AEW without talking about also the story of Kenny Omega. And that's one of the reasons why this Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page match is one of the most anticipated matches, I think, ever in AEW. The character of Hangman Page, I think the fans have grown to love him more. On January 1st, 2020, we saw kind of a more vulnerable side of the Hangman character for the first time. To be honest, on BTE, I watch the BTE show, and the guys do great work on it, and they come up with really funny stuff. And a lot of times, if I see something on BTE that I really like, I'll say I want to use it on Dynamite. And a great example more recently of that is the John Silver, Adam Cole stuff. I saw that on BTE. I thought it was great, and I was getting over it. I wanted to use it. And really, John Silver himself, a year ago, I saw John Silver doing all this stuff on BTE, and it was like, hey, like, you're doing all this amazing stuff on BTE. I think, I think you should be doing this on Dynamite. I'm very impressed. And, really cut back to 2019, a year earlier, I had seen Hangman Page drinking on BTE and doing a character. And I thought his acting was great, and I thought the character was great, and it showed a more vulnerable side of the Hangman and made him, I thought, really a flawed hero in many ways. And I think it has made him connect more with the audience. I think it's worked really well, and it was a big part of the story. And then people were, ready to see him come back from the lowest lows and get some redemption. But it's a great story because there's something in front of him, an obstacle that certainly he's never conquered and nobody's been able to conquer. So I think everybody's really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen at the pay-per-view between Kenny and Hangman.
Thanks, Tony.